I have to say, your work has such like a beautiful narrative to it always. Even if you're just looking at a still from one of your pieces, it takes you on a journey that is just brilliant. It really is. And I have a question for you that is pressing on my mind after looking at your work. I'm curious to know, how does your technique now differ from when you started, and how did it evolve?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that the thing that has come into play is that I've embraced my past, which was as a professional actor, and using that to inform sort of the theatricality, what I enjoyed the most in terms of telling visual stories and the theatricality of the work that I try to present. So I think that I think that when I started out doing sort of 3D and 3D animation, maybe I was trying to sort of like, okay, that was my past, and now it's sort of more about embracing that and bringing it into the art that I'm now creating.
You have,
So, yeah, go on.
I was going to say, you have definitely um, gotten a lot of notice for this 3D animation work that you do, and you've won awards and so on. Has that at all affected your work?
Um, it's actually what's great is that yeah, I teach at NJIT. I'm the coordinator of the digital design program there. So what's great about it is that um, I can use my work as sort of an example. So for instance, the animation that right now I'm actually about to go to Toronto and to Cardiff to go and to the film festivals there. And The piece that's there, what's interesting about it is that it's very, I actually created it to teach animation to my students. And then I realized that maybe it was getting some pretty good reactions without even sound or anything like that. And so I was like, maybe I could sort of start submitting this. So I got my son actually created the sound to it and then and then I started submitting it. And I've been a little bit blown away by the reaction. But what's great about it in terms of, teaching is that it really can emphasize the fact that story is what matters. And so that you can tell that you can make everything sort of fantastic, but if you can tell a story as quickly as possible and engage your audience with the story, and I think arguably, I mean, this is a much bigger conversation, but this is something that, with the advent of AI, is I think something that we need to possibly sort of really refocus on because that's where our humanity is.
I like that. Aesthetically, has your work always been so incredible? I mean, it is just just looking at the background that you're sitting in front of right now, it's the detail is exquisite. Has it always been at this level or this aesthetic, this style?
I think the interesting thing. I mean, I'd love to have my students on right now because the interesting thing is, I think that the field actually excites people who are particularly detail oriented. The issue with that is that you could spend years working on one piece because it's very time consuming. So the question is and I have to fight it myself actually, and it's one of the things is sort of like is really defining what needs to be there to tell the story, and then only spending your energies on that. Now, granted, my work, as you see, has got a fair amount of detail in it, because it's my own work and I take my time with it and stuff like that. So I do like that. I like, I like to think of it, and this is sort of a debate that goes on, is like it's more about authenticity rather than photorealism, right? So it's making it, enough detail to make it feel authentic while not having to necessarily focus on being perfectly accurate.
I like that. Um, have you learned personally any lessons on this artistic journey of yours, not as a teacher, but as an artist?
Yes. Well, on this particular, like the piece that we're talking about now, or just
Yeah.
in general?
And you know what?
Okay.
General, because I feel like
Okay.
what you do is very unique to the festival because we mainly get 2D artists.
Right.
So I think this has what you do has a different kind of depth.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that for let's say for this piece, I mean, one of the things is, and I don't want to give a shout out to Alexa Hurick. I worked on a children's show called Word World way back in 2006 through 2008. And Alexa Hurick, I think he's now with Sesame Street, but he was the creative director. And he this was early on in my 3D career, and he sat with me sort of after hours because I knew the 3D. He was the creative director, and he would help me pose the characters. And I learned more in sort of the 2.5 sort of after school hours, if you will, with this incredible professional. In those 2.5 hours, I learned about sort of posing a character, about silhouette and all that stuff. That's that I want, I want to give him a shout out because I'll never forget that. The other thing in terms of this piece, is that there's a fair amount of sort of quote unquote research behind it in terms of connecting the history of clowning with animation. So I don't know if you catch everything, but there's sort of an homage to Charlie Chaplin, an homage to Harlequin, an homage to the modern day clown with the type of clown shoes. And then in the background, I don't expect people to know this, but this comes from my theater background. The backdrop is a bare tree, which was used a lot, like is the backdrop often, or part of the set of Waiting for Godot, which is often played, or the characters are often considered as clowns.
I when I looked at it, I immediately thought Shakespeare.
Right, because of the skull. And so you think of, Alas, poor Yorick and everything like that. And so there's another connection. Sometimes Hamlet is also
Mhm.
considered a bit of a clown as well, or in his performances and stuff like that. And I think that there is even a theatrical production, sort of an adaptation of Hamlet, which is called The Clown Prince. So that is another illusion. So in terms of, this is a character and a set that I'm in the process of building a short animation film with. The skull is not going to be part of it. So that was just for the exhibit. In terms of the story, it's kind of a clownish character, and he happens to fall in love with, I don't know which side the character is on, but the sewing, mummy. So he falls in love with that, and that's the story basically.
So my last question is this.
Mhm.
Like your personal expression, like your personal inspiration, what are your sources? Is it random, or is it more specific than just going through your daily life and being affected?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think that doing this work, particularly, let's say, for instance, in terms of like texturing of everything, it has made me much more observant of things around me, because I'm looking at how rust peels and stuff like that. So there's that element in terms of changing it. In terms of, I've always loved doing research. So, like in terms of when I say research, like scholarly history, I was a history major in undergrad. So I love finding, and I find that and I find, let's say biographies more interesting to read than fiction.
Mm.
Because I think that, the old saying goes that they're more fantastical than fiction, right? Always, like the stories that come out of it. So I do find that it can be wonderful and inspiring to do research like that, to find things that then help you to sort of tell the story you want to tell, that may not, the audience may not get everything that you're trying to put through, but it adds, as you may have noted, like a sense of depth to the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many layers to your work, and it's truly fascinating what you do. So thank you so much for speaking with me today, and thank you so much for being a part of the festival.
Oh, terrific, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.